Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We're just going to wait a couple minutes while everybody gets entered and accessed and admitted. So thank you all for joining us tonight on a Wednesday night. Looks like we're up to 17 participants. We'll go ahead and get started here in a little bit. All right, looks like we've got 18 participants. We'll go ahead and get started because I know everybody's got busy schedules and we want to be appreciative of your time. So welcome everyone to the community workshop discussing the Mitchell Park proposed pickleball courts. Our purpose tonight is to provide a layout of the proposed pickleball courts and other recreational amenities for the neighborhood of Mitchell Park. My name is Devin Highfield. I am the current recreation manager with the city of San Luis Obispo. Tonight joining me is fellow recreation manager Lindsay Stevenson, as well as our administrative assistant, Jeff Andrews. We're here to assist with you with any of the information that you may have. Provided on the screen is a topic of the topics to be discussed tonight during the community workshop. The focus of tonight is the utilization of the state parks grants on recreational amenities in Mitchell Park with an emphasis on the potential installation of pickleball courts. Please know that this is a proposed park amenity and has not been finalized. There are still many stages of the project that will be considered prior to its installation. It is important to the city of San Luis Obispo that the community is actively engaged whenever a potential recreation amenity is proposed within its park system. Before we head into the public input process, we'd like to discuss a few meeting protocols to ensure that the meeting is run as smoothly as possible. Please respect your neighbors, your community members, and any differing points of view. When you have a question or comment, there are a couple of options. There will be opportunities for public comment at the end of the presentation. Questions may be submitted via the chat function, though some of those questions may be answered throughout the presentation. And we will be having poll questions tonight, so that will be covered more in depth as we get closer to the end of the presentation to look forward to. So staff does estimate a potential possible project budget of $210,000 for the installation of 2 pickleball courts. The Parks and Recreation Department has applied for and received a grant with the California Statewide Park Development and Community Revitalization Program in the amount of $177,952. The grant program is the largest state administered grant program for community parks. This is historically significant grant program provided over $1 billion in grant funding through Proposition 84 in 2006 and Proposition 68 in 2018. Since 1965, over 7,580 parks have been created or improved with grants administered by the California Department of Parks and Recreation, Office of Grants and Local Services, also known as OGALS. OGALS is within the department's Community Engagement Division. Currently, over 700 local agencies partner with OGALS in an effort to improve the health and wellness of California's 40 million residents by providing close home park access. The additional funding of $32,048 for the project will be allocated from the Parkland and Lieu Quimby Fund, which requires the fees to be used for developing new or rehabilitating existing neighborhood, community parks, or recreation facilities that serve specific subdivisions paying for those fees. In February of this year, the City Council approved an authorization to initiate project planning and design for pickleball courts and appropriate project budget at Mitchell Park. I do want to reiterate that this is a community workshop, is not to showcase a planned project, but emphasize proposed inclusions of amenities at the park location. The community workshop format provides an opportunity to adjust any designs based upon public input. City staff is focused on the activation of parks with additional amenities for neighborhoods to use within walking distance. There is a project process which includes community engagement, Parks and Recreation Commission review with authorization, and ultimately council approval prior to any construction commencement. Since 2018, the Parks and Recreation Department has been working on the update to the master plan and element update for the city of San Luis Obispo. This update, titled The Parks and Recreation Blueprint for the Future, is an essential guide for the future of parks and recreation within the city for the next 20 years. This blueprint addresses the evolving recreational needs of our community with a strong focus on advancing and supporting community building, sustainable transportation, and other system-wide goals. Key considerations for the enhancement and redevelopment of existing parks will be striking a balance between active and passive recreation uses, maintaining neighborhood character, ensuring high-quality design, and optimizing resources and inclusion by providing multi-generational, multi-use, and multi-ability amenities and facilities. The blueprint identifies the need for park activation and building community through site planning and provision and community gathering spaces and associated infrastructure. The department focused on various types of community input engagements during this process, including foundational meetings, pop-up events, neighborhood meetings, bright idea workshops, and through public comments at our commissions and council meetings. To meet the changing needs of the community, the blueprint highlighted certain neighborhoods, including Mitchell Park, and active adult populations within its planned goals. The blueprint is set to be adopted by the City Council in July of this year. Through building community in neighborhoods, the blueprint will provide a common set of recreational amenities within walking distance of neighborhoods and communities highlighted here within the 6 sub-areas of town: Foothill and Anholm, Downtown, Meadow and Sinsheimer, Rigetti and Orchid, Stone Ridge and Margarita, and Laguna Lake. Those amenities include basketball courts, pickleball courts, tennis courts, sand courts, roller courts, turf access, accessibility to dog parks, playgrounds, and other outdoor gathering areas with emphasis on shade. The goal is to spread these common set of amenities within a 10-minute walk of neighborhoods and communities. The blueprint discusses service levels for population based on the current quantity of recreational amenities and how many amenities are needed to meet the current needs and future populations. For pickleball courts, national standards recommend 1 court per 6,000 residents, which puts the city well behind on meeting the needs of its current residents. While there's no national metrics for bocce courts or shaded gathering areas, the department acknowledges both amenities are lacking within the city. Additional information regarding the blueprint and inventory assessments can be found at slowparksandrec.org, and we'll be providing that information in the chat function as well. Feedback from the public outreach surrounding the blueprint for the future highlighted the public's desire for additional pickleball courts. Mitchell Park is centrally located and is a well-liked gathering place near downtown. Through outreach, the public has expressed concerns regarding the low activation and lack of amenities surrounding Mitchell Park in the downtown areas. Through installation of amenities like dedicated pickleball courts, activation of the park will provide more walkable recreational opportunities for multi-generational community members. While the proposed project does impact a section of the grass area, it is the only planned activation of the park, allowing for the remaining turf to be utilized for community gatherings and public events. So pickleball is a fun sport that combines many elements of tennis, badminton, table tennis. The sport can be played both indoors and outdoors on badminton-sized courts with slightly modified tennis nets. Pickleball is played with a paddle and plastic ball with holes. It can be played as doubles or singles and enjoyed by all ages and skill levels. Pickleball has been introduced at all school levels during physical education classes, and many players enjoy the social aspect of the game and ability to stay active within their community. I'd like to provide a brief overview of the history behind pickleball within the city of San Luis Obispo and the growth of the sport to its current structure. In 2014, an engaged group of community members attended commission meetings talking about the sport of pickleball and its benefits to the community and specifically to the active adult population. With the support of the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Parks and Recreation Department partnered with the community users to implement a pilot program for pickleball at various facilities throughout the city. Temporary pickleball lines were added to the Ludwig Community Center, the Meadow Park Basketball Court, French Park Basketball Court, offering a total of 8 line courts for use during the week. The program continued to show very high numbers of attendance during its pilot season, and the city approved funding to add permanent pickleball lines to basketball courts at French and Meadow Park during resurfacing projects. To continue to meet the needs of a growing pickleball community, permanent lines were added to the Memorial Tennis Court at French Park with reserved times for pickleball and tennis during morning hours and drop-in play in the afternoon. It goes without stating that pickleball in San Luis Obispo would be a lot different today if it weren't for the continued advocacy of the Slow Pickleball Club. The club has been working with the city to provide pickleball programming to the community since 2015 by offering free instruction for beginners and social-based functions. Membership for the club has expanded from around 35 in 2015 to over 300 members today. Many of the members play pickleball at city facilities 7 days a week and has roughly 40 to 60 pickleball users daily at the French Park courts. Due to its continued popularity of pickleball at court locations, the city constructed 3 dedicated pickleball courts within French Park while continuing to provide pickleball at the lower shared French Park courts and at Meadow Park. The city of San Luis Obispo has begun to offer youth sport clinics with a focus on pickleball, where the kids progressively learn the sport over the course of 4 weeks, and each class has been sold out due to its popularity, serving over 600 youth in the community, and will continue to be offered throughout the year. So the following 2 slides provides an overhead and ground level views of the proposed layouts of the 2 pickleball courts presented to the council in February for authorization to initiate project planning. The proposed site location is the turf area adjacent to the restroom and the playground. The courts would be accessible from the walkway connecting the playground and the restroom. From the walkway at the bathroom to the diagonal walkway, there's approximately a 2-foot drop in elevation. The proposed design is to match the elevation from the walkway at the bathroom, while the court needs to be flat with only minimal slope of drainage. Therefore, the court's edge adjacent to the diagonal walkway must be approximately 2 feet higher than the existing ground. So as I mentioned before, staff does estimate a project budget of around $210,000 for the proposed installation of the 2 pickleball courts. We do have the grant that we received from the California Statewide Park Development and Community Revitalization Program in the amount of $177,952, which is roughly 84% of the overall budget of the courts. The additional funding of $32,048 for the project will be allocated from the Parkland in lieu Quimby Fund. Now let's talk about some potential alternatives to the proposed 2 courts. Staff have provided an alternative layout for the 1 pickleball court within the same area. Access to the court would be similar to the 2 court layout and would reduce the potential noise from play and still provide the park activation. With the proposed single court, the elevation difference is around 1 foot, with the court edge approximately 1 foot higher than the existing ground. The proposed layout would not impact turf as substantially, but still provide an area for any congregations. While with proposing 1 pickleball court instead of 2, this provides an opportunity to activate the park with other potential passive recreation features. While this list isn't definitive of any park features, it will spark some conversation of potential amenities that would benefit both the Mitchell Park neighborhood as well as the potential of SLO Senior Center. They include installation of bocce courts, chess tables, or shaded gathering areas over the current barbecue area. So now we're going to get into some of our poll questions for you. So I'm going to ask Jeff Andrews to pull up our poll for today. And basically what I do is you're going to have 3 questions to answer here, and go ahead, and if you can participate by answering those questions to the best of your ability. We'll be asking a couple of them regarding the 2 court layout, the 1 court layout, potential amenities that might be able to add to it. And Jeff, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Devin. We are working to get our poll up right now. We are just having a little bit of technical difficulties. Please give me 1 minute.
And while he's pulling it up, once we do get to the public comment period, if there is any specific slides anybody wants to go back and address and look at in more detail, I'll be happy to send that back for additional conversations regarding it. So. I hope everybody's able to enjoy the good weather today.
While we work on this, I'll also let you know about the opportunity to use the chat function for comments and questions. After the presentation, after Devin is complete, we will also have comments and questions with voice. So we'll have you raise your virtual hands. You can do that using the reactions button on your desktop computer. That's with the reactions button. And if you're on mobile, you can press the more button on your phone.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, how about this? How about we come back to the slide, Jeff, and you just let me know when it's prompted and ready, and I'll talk about the next steps. Does that sound good to you?
If it's ready, yes.
All right, perfect. So for the next steps, obviously there will be some questions that do come out of tonight's meeting and input regarding the future of Mitchell Park. We do have opportunities if you'd like to speak about that at our upcoming Parks and Recreation Commission meetings and provide input. We are looking to hold a potential summer date to bring this back to the commission for more information and deliberation on it. We will be providing that information within the text area. And if you do want more information regarding city council meetings, you can always visit the website solocity.org, and we will be providing that information to it to set up a notification link so you can be notified of any future meetings that essentially do happen the first Wednesday of the month. So Jeff, if you want, we can at least start the chat comment section, and we can go back to the poll once you have it ready if you'd like. So for the polls, we have reached the end of our presentation. For those of you who would like to provide any public comment, you're going to raise your hand to be unmuted. And in order to do that, you're going to move your cursor down to the bottom right corner of the toolbar and select the reaction. And of those reactions, you should be able to see a raised hand function on yours. And so you will be called upon when it's your turn, and you will have essentially 3 minutes to provide comment. And Jeff, I'm ready when you are, sir.
Yes. So firstly, unfortunately, it doesn't look like the poll is going to work tonight. Okay. I apologize for the inconvenience there. But as Devin mentioned, raise your hand and I will offer to unmute your mic. Please also use the chat function if your mic doesn't work or if you don't want to speak out loud. But we do have one hand up from Talia. I'm going to offer to unmute and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Talia. Someone might have to mute themselves, I think, for me to talk, perhaps one of the hosts. All right, well, I'll continue speaking anyway. Sorry. I'm a resident of the Mitchell Park area. I believe Mitchell Park is a terrible place for pickleball courts. You talked about neighborhood character. That would be a blemish on the face of Mitchell Park's character. There's nothing more multi-generational and multi-use than grass. And I think that bocce ball courts as well as shaded areas would be a better fit for the character of Mitchell Park, and that pickleball would be perfect somewhere where there's already asphalt, where we don't have to pave over paradise to build a pickleball court instead of a parking lot. Let's see, Emerson Park, Laguna Lake was a suggestion brought up. I know it's not within walking distance, but it would be a better fit for the situation. And with the one court for 6,000 people, we should consider the demographic of San Luis Obispo. I'm not sure that there are 6,000 people here who really want to play pickleball. I know that I'm not one of them. I've heard wonderful things about it, but there are a lot of considerations that I feel are going unspoken or unsaid here. Thank you.
Thank you, Talia, for that information. I appreciate it.
Okay, Helen, I will offer to unmute your mic. And then Cynthia also let us know that her raise hand option isn't working. So Cynthia, you'll be next. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. So I also am a Mitchell Park resident. I live directly across the street from the senior center parking lot. I can appreciate that. I've heard roughly 500 residents have expressed their interest in having more pickleball courts. In a city of roughly 37,000 people, that's 1.3%. I don't suggest that we take away additional opportunities for recreation. I do like the idea of a bocce ball court. I can see the value in chess, even though, I personally wouldn't probably go sit over there and play a chess game. I can understand why other people would. My main concern, though, is the impact on the parking. Mitchell does not have a parking lot to itself. It's the only parking lot is the senior center parking lot, which there's a sign posted that unless you are a senior center and you have a permit, you can't park there. So that impacts all of the public parking around the park. Some of it is 2-hour parking, the parking up against the park side, but on the opposite side of the street where I live, it is open parking. Parking is already impacted and very frustrating as it is. So a couple of suggestions I might have would be to issue a resident parking pass, perhaps on the non-park side of the streets, make it so residents only can park there. There's other things that are going to be impacted on this parking. There's a nursing home on Bouchon. There's a church that I don't think has their own parking lot. On Sundays, on their youth nights, parking is going to be severely impacted. There's a market. They do have a small parking lot, but people usually want to park on the street because they want to run in and out. And that's just the 4 blocks of the streets that surround Mitchell. So basically, my main concern is how is this going to impact traffic and parking? As a resident, I have to park on the street. And if I can't find parking, as a resident, that'll make me very, very frustrated if I have to park in a metered parking or 2-hour parking or walk around the block because people are taking up my parking when I can't, and then I can't park in front of my own home. So thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And just to address a couple of your points on there, the emphasis on not having more than 1 or 2 courts in there is to essentially have this be for the neighborhood. And so what we're trying to do is create amenities within walking distances to essentially deter from people. And that's not saying other people from different portions of the community wouldn't come and utilize it. But as I did mention, we do have multiple courts over at French Park, both 3 dedicated, 1 and then 4 of them, where that's usually more of the gathering area. But no, I completely understand your point and appreciate your feedback. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I'm going to lower your hand. We're going to go to Cynthia and then Kathy and then Joan. I saw your hand up in the video. So Cynthia, I will offer to unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Okay, first of all, I find it very disturbing that you want to make decisions like this in the middle of a pandemic where people have so much on their minds and have trouble paying attention to something like a pickleball court in Mitchell Park. There's also apparently all these things have been going on. People sending petitions and people organizing around this. I live in the Mitchell house and I have heard very little about this or nothing. And I find it very disturbing that a big decision like this about a local park that is quiet, it's a pocket park. I don't know if that has meaning to you. Pocket, quiet, sedate, someplace you can go and relax. So I don't really get this whole pickleball thing. If people want to play pickleball, there are other places. Also, there are fads in these kind of things. And I understand that the tennis courts are empty around town and lines for people playing pickleball. So why isn't that an alternative to change tennis courts into pickleball courts somewhere else where there's more room? There's lots of bigger parks. So I just really don't get this. And I really want to be included. You know, somebody sent something on next door Mitchell Park saying that there are also markings around the park already about where this park is going to go, where the pickleball courts are going to go. So pickleball makes noise. It's taking up space in a very small park where there's protests going on. There's women's marches going on, Black Lives Matter, church events. And why you would want to make this park even smaller for public use, not just the pickleball players, which there seem to be millions of suddenly, but everybody. And that's what I have to say. And have the neighbors been polled about this? The people who live around Mitchell Park, not people who are coming from, I don't know where all these pickle people live. So, you know, nobody's asked me what I thought about it or my neighbors. So what about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Cynthia, I appreciate your comments and thank you for providing them. We did provide flyers to the residents around Mitchell Park last Wednesday. We tend to, if we go too far out with notification, we tend to not get too many people notified. So we like to do it as close as possible. And if we weren't in a pandemic, obviously we would be having this conversation in person and having this community workshop so we could actually be on site. The white lines that you do see in Mitchell Park right now was just to provide essentially a context of the potential impact of the park, of the pickleball courts within the park. So I do appreciate your information, and I'm happy to meet with you separately if you'd like, or provide any sort of notification in the future for those ones. We do want to make sure that if people do have the email addresses and can get signed up for those notifications, so they know when it's being brought to the Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as the City Council in the future. As I said, we are trying to plan to provide this to this commission for essentially next direction sometime this summer, potentially in July. So happy to meet with you on the side. Jeff will be providing my email address if you'd like to send me an email, and I'm happy to talk with you further about it. So thank you, Cynthia.
Yes, I would like to be notified of all these discussions and all these decisions. And then the first time, I got the flyer a few days ago. That's the first thing that I've been contacted about. Isn't that a little strange?
Yeah, it was put in last Wednesday, and so when we did take the information to the City Council back in February, that was just to authorize the grant. So essentially with this Prop 68 grant that we did apply for, it had to be for a specific project. It couldn't just be for, and so based on the information that we collected from both the blueprint for the future information, the public feedback that we'd received, as well as trying to fit amenities within the sub-area map location, we did decide to try and move forward with it. So we have heard from the community. I've received a lot of emails from it, and we will be condensing all that information together to provide to the Parks and Recreation Commission at a future meeting so that we can have a plan going forward for it. So thank you, Cynthia.
To look into where all these pickleball people live, these 500 or 5,000 people who have been petitioning you.
Yep.
And I think that's an important factor.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that live within the city proper itself, and are some that do come from surrounding cities as well. Like I said, it is a social sport, and so a lot of people do travel around to different portions of it to play with their friends in different cities. So it's a very beneficial sport for it, and I recommend anybody, if you'd like to try it out, we can get you in contact with Slow Pickleball Club. They do have free lessons every Thursday at French Park, and we can get you signed up for it if you'd like.
Great. Thank you for your comments, Cynthia. We appreciate the feedback. We also have Kathy, whose raise hand option wasn't working. Kathy, I will offer to unmute you. And for everyone else, there is activity in the chat. You can check that out. You can also leave your comments there. The chat is being recorded and saved. The chat log will be saved, and we will be reviewing comments there. All right, Kathy, you should be able to unmute.
I'm somewhat new to using this kind of technology. Am I visible?
Well, you're not visible, but we can definitely hear you.
Okay. Well, my concerns have pretty much already been voiced. The fact that, to me, Mitchell Park is a passive activity park, not an active activity park. The fact that you're paving over lawn, which I always hate to see. But because I'm heavily involved with the senior center, I have concerns about the parking as well as the neighbors do. For most of our activities, we already don't have enough parking spaces. And I had thought, well, maybe we could ask the city to make more of them handicapped spaces. But then the problem is, because handicapped spaces need more width, we'd actually lose at least one space. And it's bad enough now for the volunteers, when they notice people who are parked in the lot without a permit, to have to call law enforcement or parking enforcement and have them ticketed. And then you're creating bad feelings. So I just see that the parking lot is going to be filled with people using the pickleball court, which leaves the seniors having to park on the street, which is not the goal of having a senior center parking lot. I'm not sure what to offer as a more concrete, positive suggestion. I just think it's not the correct park to have that kind of an activity in. I do support the bocce ball. I think that's a good idea. I think that would fit in with some senior activities. And the chess table, I can support those, and certainly a shade structure over the barbecue area. But I think the pickleball courts are going to entice too many people to come and use our very, very limited parking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that feedback, and it was definitely a concern of staff as well regarding the use of it and making sure that it was utilized more for senior center parking than anything else. So definitely a concern of staff as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Kathy. We have Janet next. Let me find your name. Okay, Janet, I will offer to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay, hello, my name is Janet Phillips, and I live directly across the street from Mitchell Park. As a matter of fact, I think with the courts go in, we will probably be most directed. I work a full-time nights in a local hospital. We've been in Mitchell Park as a renter and as an owner since the late 80s, and our family and neighbors are adamantly against the pickleball court in Mitchell Park. And basically, Mitchell Park is a small, quiet, peaceful, sort of old-fashioned setup park, and it's not conducive to loud ball playing. The concerns are the parking, and I think there's better utilization of the resources. By the time you put in one pickleball court, the cost for that, as we all know with construction, it doesn't take that much more to put in a second or third court. And for the best utilization of resources, why not put it in some place like French Park, which you can actually get more bang for your buck there and utilize, put 2 or 3 pickleball courts. And it's a well-established fact that green spaces are very conducive to positive mental health for both seniors and children, actually for people of all ages. And so to take away from a quiet green space is really sad. And Mitchell Park is in the center of a lot of activities. We've said, an infinity of activities. I've actually put 2 weddings on there and Grace Church activities, and having the pickleball court is not conducive. And as you talk about the people from the outside coming in to play pickleball, where's the parking? And this is an issue. This is going to impact the senior center. There's also other things they could do, like bring out table tennis. Why not have a bunch of table tennis tables and bring them out during different parts of the week? Also, maybe have Tai Chi and yoga for seniors. So this will cost a lot less than building the pickleball court. And then who's to say who's going to be using that pickleball court? It could be anybody of any age, which is great, which is important. but let's put it in a place where it's utilized more, like French Park, Laguna Park. And the French Park would be actually a perfect place. You know, let's keep Mitchell Park that quiet old-fashioned park where we could have county bands, you know, play there during the summer like they used to pre-COVID. That was wonderful. And just imagine Easter Sunday, Grace Church, they have their big, for their fall kickoff, and you've got pickleball players in the middle of the sermon. I don't think that's going to be too cool. So anyhow, our family is very adamant against pickleball courts in Mitchell Park. Put them somewhere else where more people can enjoy them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your communication. And just to clarify, we do have 3 dedicated pickleball courts within French Park, as well as 4 line courts on the multi-purpose court there. So 7 courts in general, as well as 1 more on the basketball court. So thank you. But yes, we are looking at other locations as well to add additional amenities like pickleball, like basketball courts. And so those will be upcoming in the blueprint for the future once it is adopted by City Council in July. We're excited about the future for the next 20 years of additional activations, additional walking amenities within the sustainable areas of the city. So thank you for your information. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Devin. From the chat, following up on that, maybe you can address a question from the chat that says, what about Sinsheimer? I think it's related to this last comment. This question, what about Sinsheimer, is from Helen Nolan.
Yeah, we do have 6 tennis courts at Sinsheimer Park currently, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to find dedicated pickleball space. We have had essentially a test program over at French Park where the pickleball courts are both utilized by tennis players as well as pickleball players, and we've seen that it works best when there's dedicated courts for tennis and dedicated courts for pickleball. So the opportunity is potentially there in the future to do it, but at this time, while we're looking at it, we're looking at locations that potentially could serve the community better. So if it isn't Mitchell Park, that's completely fine. We'll be looking at other alternate locations as well within the sub areas and locations. So
great, thank you,
I hope
Devin.
that helped.
There are no hands up in the meeting right now. Another question from the chat from Ann Robinson. Do you know the demand for bocce ball?
Not all the way. I mean, Emerson Park Bocce Ball is pretty well utilized throughout the week by various groups of city members. And a lot of them are local residents of Emerson Park. So there's a lot of people walking to those ones. Emerson does have another one of the similar parking structure where a lot of the spots are permitted versus available to the public. So it is a neighborhood park where people are walking to the bocce ball courts. And I think that was kind of the context that we were looking for with potential passive recreation amenities at Mitchell, aside from pickleball, where the neighborhood would be able to walk to those locations instead of driving there or ride their bikes. And so that is the reason why we kept it to 1 or 2 courts instead of 6 or 7, because when you have more courts, it invites more social, and this one's just supposed to be a small local court instead of a large community court. So hopefully that addressed it, but yeah, bocce, there isn't that much national statistics regarding demand for it, but obviously we know that we have an active population of residents, and we want to make sure that we're providing the recreational amenities that they are looking for.
Great, thank you. I'll let you know if more questions come in from the chat. Actually, there will be one, but we did have Joan Drake, raise your hand in the video. I did offer to unmute your mic, Joan. Do you still have a question for us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, thank you.
Okay, I'm the current president of the executive board at the senior center. And I think Kathy Marvier said a lot of the things that I was going to say. So I'd like to say I'm really pleased to hear the support of the neighbors, and they're not only the older people but younger people too that realize that perhaps this isn't the best place to have a pickleball court. We have a small parking lot. I think it's 15 spots, and we have over 350 members. So parking is always a challenge at the senior center. And to add a pickleball court would just be exasperating the situation. I appreciate your time and hope that you will take all of our comments seriously. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, John. It's wonderful to hear from you, and I look forward to seeing you in person in the future back at the Senior Center. But yes, no, absolutely. These are the reasons why we do our public engagement and reach out to the community, just to make sure that we are essentially doing what the community would like to see in their park areas. And so we will be following up with Parks and Recreation Commission with all the comments and information that we've heard here today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the poll up, and the poll would help us out a little bit more with that, but we have heard from a lot of community members not supporting pickleball courts at Mitchell Park, and we do plan on taking that information to the Parks and Recreation Commission at a future meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Joan. No current hands up in the video session right now, but a question from Mary. Can you describe the features of the proposed court with regard to fencing, accessibility, locked and unlocked hours, etc.? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll pull this up an example. So obviously this isn't what the final design of the court would look like. Obviously it would be more of a fenced-in variety rather than a gray wall, but pickleball courts usually do have a 4-foot fencing around each of the individual courts. If you were to do, say, 2 courts, it would have a fence in the middle of them as a separation, and then walkways on the sides to get to those court locations. So it has been working very well at the French Park dedicated pickleball courts, where you have one main entrance for the 3 of them, but then side entrances, at least for one of the courts along the pathway area. There's always opportunity for additional designs on the fencing if we wanted to make it more appealing and appeasing. So it's not just so much a chain link as well as cement around the base of it. So with these courts, obviously we're just showing you the court itself, but the exterior of the court would be accented with bushes, with benches, with other seating areas and arrangements, so that it's not just a cement slab with amenities on it. It would actually have some greenery and beneficial stuff around it to incorporate it into the park location, so it doesn't just stand out. But thank you. I hope that answered the question, and happy to elaborate more if you'd like. And I can go back to some pictures of the court itself. And so this is the actual French Park court that we installed 2 years ago almost. So you can kind of see how the fencing is in there, black fencing, how it's along the edges of it as well as in the middle. And it's very well utilized throughout the week. And the hours of it would be essentially park hours, and it would be limited to dawn to dusk, essentially the daylight hours, since we are not planning on putting any sort of lighting features around the pickleball court. So it would only be available during the hours that daylight is, the courts would make it accessible. So it would definitely limit it during those time periods.
Great, thanks, Devin. Still not seeing any virtual hands, but another one from the chat. Is this a done deal? That question comes from Marianne Gibson.
It is definitely not a done deal. It is just a proposal that we had as a part of our proposition, Prop 68 grant that we had in there. So it is definitely not a done deal. We will be bringing this to Parks and Recreation Commission, hopefully in July is, I think, our go-for date for direction. So they might go, you know, this isn't the best fit for this park. In that case, we would have to reapply for the Prop 68 grant for essentially a different amenity, either in Mitchell Park or a different area. But as we stated before, I do apologize if some of the community members don't feel like we did enough outreach for this project. We will do better in the future. Obviously, with the pandemic, we are limited in how we can interact with the community. So I do appreciate everybody being here on the virtual format, but this is not a locked deal. This is just a proposed amenity for the park location.
Great, thank you, Devin. Mary, I see your hand up. I'll offer to unmute, and let's see if you have another question. The timer will start.
Am I on?
Yes, Mary, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Mary Vandenberg. I'm also a member of the executive board of the senior center. We have had discussions in the past about ways to make more use of the outdoor part of the park. And I know we will have, continuing ongoing discussions about this, but we've also had many discussions with Parks and Rec about safety in the park, especially since the population that we serve at the senior center tends to be on the more upper end of the age range for seniors, not on the lower end for seniors. And we have had many concerns about keeping our more aged members safe, given some of the problems that the park has had with homeless, with unfortunately the barbecue area is right there where our ramp comes down from the back, and some of our members who need to utilize that ramp don't feel real comfortable with walking down into gathering of homeless people. I know we have a problem with that in the city, and it will probably continue, but that's one of the concerns I would have about pickleball court paved like it is, low fences, greenery around to maybe hide the court, and that kind of thing. Just putting that out there.
Sure. Yeah, then thank you, Mary. And just to elaborate, the court would still be visible, so it wouldn't encompass the entirety of the fence. And the hope would be that adding a pickleball court would assist with activation of the park. As far as the concerns about the safety, we understand as well as city staff that safety is an utmost importance and has been addressed within our blueprint for the future. Unfortunately, as a part of the Prop 68 grant, that money is allocated to recreational amenities, which doesn't include it, but that is something that we've looked at as a part of the blueprint for the future. Definitely, one of the system-wide goals is on safety within our park systems. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Another question from Robert Spector. This is about benches. Will there be benches for fans?
Absolutely, yeah. We would install benches around there, the park area. As we noticed, pickleball is a social sport, and so when you're not playing, obviously you'd want to be sitting somewhere. So we would try and install some benches around the area, as well as some amenities to assist the pickleball lines. If you've ever played pickleball at French Park, there's little spots for your paddles to notice where you're in line. So yes, additional amenities would be added around the location. Obviously, since we're working with just city staff, we didn't design it to its fullest extent that you would normally see with any sort of features, like say the Easley Park Playground. We went through a designer of it. And if this process was to move forward with the installation and project planning for pickleball courts, there would be additional amenities and designs to include those features.
Where will the benches go? It's a small park. Janet, ask.
No, we would put them within the recreational area. I mean, obviously the park is small, so we wouldn't want to basically have a bench every 6 feet. So we're not talking about 6 or 7 benches. It might be 1 or 2 around the locations for it. So that is something that the designers would work with us on. And obviously, if we would move forward with that, we would definitely be doing community engagement and reaching out to the community members around Mitchell Park, as well as the senior center, to get their comments incorporated within those ones. So
Great. Thank you, Devin. If you're monitoring chat, there's definitely a lot of chat going on, lots of comments. Currently, there are no more raised virtual hands, and I don't see any specific questions in the chat at the moment.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody's opinions and thoughts today and joining us on this Wednesday night. We definitely have heard you, and we will be condensing all this information and talk to our Parks and Recreation Commission. Best way to be notified of those Parks and Recreation Commission meetings is through our Solidity website, and you'll be able to sign up for those location or information. You're welcome to come to any either Parks and Recreation Commission meetings or City Council meetings and voice your opinion during the public comment periods of those ones until we actually have an actual presentation of the results from the community workshop. So see a couple more hands up there. Happy to answer additional questions if there are any.
You know, this was a great question here from Mary. But Devin, maybe you have the poll questions that you can read to us, and maybe they can respond. We can probably get some responses in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
If you guys, if everybody in the meeting, I did put some links up there. I'll copy it again. It's viewing the blueprint. You can access the PRC page, the Parks and Recreation Commission that Devin was mentioning, and that definitely provides feedback to our Parks and Recreation Commission, who help us build these plans. You can also submit further feedback to Devin's email, which I put in the chat. So Mary Ellen, that answers your question, and yep. Talia also. So, but yeah, Devin will read the poll questions for us.
Yeah. So Jeff, if you want to put question 1 in the chat function, I can ask the first one. And the first question would be, do you support the installation of pickleball courts at Mitchell Park? And you can either yes or no. Is perfect responses for those ones. Jeff, let me know when you're ready for question 2.
Yeah, hold on just a minute. They're actually responding in the chat.
That's great.
Which is perfect. Great because yeah, as I mentioned, I didn't say out loud, but I put in the chat that we are saving the chat log and this will be reviewed.
No, this is perfect. We can work with it.
We'll give it a little bit more time for the first question. Okay, it's slowed down. If you want to read the next question, sure. I have it copied into the chat, but you can read it out.
Sure. Do you prefer the installation of 2 pickleball courts or 1 pickleball court with alternative amenities? And your answers would be 2 pickleball courts, 1 pickleball court with other amenities or other recreational features. So you got 3 choices.
The answers are coming in. Thank you so much, everybody.
This is great.
The chat is slowing because still a few more coming through. We have answers for other features, for 2 courts, other amenities, but if we must, then 1 court only.
That's great. So the final question is a choose it, and it could be open as well. So what amenities would you like to see in Mitchell Park? And a couple options are pickleball, chess table, a shaded gathering area, bocce ball, shuffleboard, lawn bowling, a permanent cornhole, and a meditation labyrinth, or if you'd like, your choice.
All right, that question is in the chat. There are some options there, but feel free to go with other and let us know what you think.
And just for a little history, we did at one time have a shuffleboard table over in front of the Meadow Park building, but that has long since lost its paint. So it might be nice to bring some shuffleboard back.
This one requires a little bit more typing. We'll give it some time, but we're seeing some answers for lawn bowling, shuffleboard, bocce, chess tables. Some other options that were not on the chat that we put in. Somebody's saying improved lawn or more parking. Croquet, that is an interesting option. Walking trails with spots to stop and exercise. That's probably similar to what they have out at Laguna. Horseshoes.
This is great. This is
There's a
wonderful.
nice horseshoe section at Santa Rosa Park.
Mhm.
Group classes on the lawn.
Yep.
Interesting one from Kathy. Activities that need other equipment, need someone to hand out the equipment. Who would do that? So yeah, that's a different another conversation there.
Yeah, and I think any amenity that we would propose would answer some of those questions that we have in there, and make sure that we are, asking the community for their engagement, as well as talking to the SLO Senior Center board members as well as members as well, to make sure that we are offering what the neighborhood would like to see in their parks.
Great. The chat is slowing. I will once again copy the links to view the blueprint to access the Parks and Recreation Commission page. It's a great way to keep up with what's going on Parks and Rec related, and for submitting additional feedback on this item. To be notified of notifications or upcoming commission meetings, you can sign up on SLO City's website, slocity.org, and just search e-notifications.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you guys providing that information. Like I said, my name is Devin Highfield, Recreation Manager. Jeff did provide my contact information in here. I'm happy to speak with anybody further on any of these topics. And if you guys want, even set up a little email chain to provide you with any updates and information to provide to your neighborhoods as well. So thank you. Appreciate everybody's time tonight, and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the weekend.
Yes, thank you everybody for your comments. I'm going to end the meeting now. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.